The air, water, earth, and sun awes us. The four awesome forces of nature can provide 1,000 times more energy than we need. You are also awesome. You and me and all Earthkind are the fifth element. We are literally changing the world. Technology is now harnessing nature's awesome power for electricity, heat, and transportation. And the best news is that the clean energy transition can save us money and create a more prosperous, just, beautiful, and sustainable civilization today. Welcome to the Awesome Earthkind podcast. If you would, let folks know who you are, where do you live, and what kind of work you do.
I'm Twyla Dell. I live in Overland Park, Kansas. It's a suburb of Kansas City. Been here since 1978 and have seen marvelous changes take place as all cities have gone through this past 30, 40 years. And I have a Ph.D. in environmental studies from Antioch University Graduate School in Keene, New Hampshire. So that was an interesting experience going to New Hampshire. I kind of, when I got there, thought, I wonder, do they speak English? I had a sense that it was a foreign country. Of course, it's not. It's a lovely place and enjoyed that thoroughly. And so my whole work was on fuel and mapping out the 19th century fuel changes. And I wrote this big fat book, Fueling Change, How We Created Climate Change One Fuel at a Time. And then since then, I've gotten simpler and I have the gasoline diet because I'm putting all my eggs in the gasoline basket. It's a big message. And so the gasoline diet tells you, it says, drive less, lose pounds, save the planet. And this one is Good Night Gasoline. And as you notice, you've had just a brief chance to look, but it is simplicity itself. I mean, anybody can understand this message, and it wasn't easy to get from this to this.
From the phone book to the short video picture book. How
right,
nice.
right.
Indeed.
I consider
Wonderful.
it a major stroke of genius, if I may be so bold.
Yeah, every once in a while we all have them, but it's so wonderful when it happens, right?
You know, it's hard to be simple.
Yes, indeed. And you were with the EPA for a long time, right?
Well, not long enough. Now you forced me into admitting how far back it was. I was hired at the end of the Carter administration. That's a while back. And that was for public participation. That was his idea. And that was around any environmental cleanup or whatever, that the community should be involved. And that was a wonderful idea. And he promoted that. And then Reagan came in, and either he or somebody in his administration said trees cause pollution, and that was their point of view. And he laid off a bunch of us from EPA, and so I went off on my own. And I created the Environmental Leadership Program in Kansas City, which was a 2.5-day weekend retreat for business leaders to acquaint them with 12 different environmental issues. And I ran that for 6 years. And then trying to be a not-for-profit in a town that didn't think much of environmental stuff finally caught up with me. So I went to graduate school and spent the next few years doing that, really focusing on energy that was, I mean, global warming in 1990 when I started the Environmental Leadership Program, Foresight Institute. It was just barely being spoken. You know, we talked about global warming, and climate change hadn't come in yet. And that is the most abstract term that we can create the umbrella term that we are experiencing now. And all of the stuff that we talked about in 1990 has come true.
Yeah, it's been pretty incredible how fast everything has been moving and changing, and the impact on climate and extreme weather is just unbelievable. Well, we like to start, Twyla, with an inspirational quote or a kind of mindset quote to help people put things in a different perspective. We call it a quantum quote.
Here's this one from Ayn Rand. You remember her? She was a early 20th century author. You can evade reality, but you cannot evade the consequences of evading reality.
You can evade reality, but you can't evade the consequences of evading reality. Interesting.
And that's what we're busy doing. We're just waking up to the fact that we've been evading reality. And the oil companies are the last ones to accept the fact that they are the problem and not the solution. All of the 20th century, they were the solution. And we lived for those solutions, and we discounted the problems that they created, like 40,000 people a year dying on our roads from car accidents, for instance, would be just one, all of the air pollution and so forth, because we love the fruits of their product. I mean, you could not deny that oil has brought us the way we live today, suburbs and airplanes and you name it, it's all about oil. But now we realize belatedly that we cannot continue to accept the trade-off, and we have to give up, and we have to give it up in pretty quick order in order to stop the momentum that we need to stop climate change. So oil has become the problem.
Interesting. So for you, why do you do what you do, Twyla?
Oh, hell if I know. I don't know. I grew up on a farm in Oregon, and in my elementary school years, little family farm, and lived very close to the earth. And then we left Oregon and left the farm. We couldn't make a living on it. And we moved to the beach just outside of San Luis Obispo, Morro Bay, California. I mean, I know as a New Yorker, you don't know the earth stretches that far.
I've heard of a place called
maps.
California. Been there a few times. Actually got a couple of kids and grandkids out there, but that's okay. Go ahead.
Really? All right. I've seen those maps where it's all New York and then there's this
and then there's the rest of the world.
Right,
it's kind of, yeah, I got it. We're the center of the universe.
I
Yes,
spent my high
indeed.
school years on the rocky coast of Central California, tide pools and so forth. And I didn't know what I was being exposed to. As a kid, you just do what you do. And so I don't know. I went to work at EPA. I had a master's degree in English, and they were hiring me to write press releases in their public relations office. And I really all of a sudden, everything that I knew as a child that had really been unexpressed, I realized that there were laws protecting some of the things that I enjoyed as a child. And I got very enthusiastic about those. And I really was sorry I was laid off. And I was full of vim and vigor and vitality. And oh, by the way, I married the water division director. And so now it was in the family. And I was a former high school teacher, and I thought, I am going to help people understand these environmental issues. So all of that came together, and I opened this company in 1990 called the Foresight Institute, and had designed this 2.5-day program, leadership program. And we opened chapters in 45 high schools around the area, and we had high school kids, and we had scholarships for high school kids. I mean, it was a pretty well-developed program, and I couldn't get enough money to keep it going.
So now you've written 8 books, 5 of which are environmental, and your specific focus right now is on getting people off of gasoline.
I've been working on gasoline for 10 years, and I just recently, as I was writing the telephone book, I shouldn't say that, because everybody will say, well, I don't want to buy that. It's too big. Well, it's got 138 illustrations, so it's well illustrated. Anyway, what I realized was that gasoline was the culprit. And it is something that we all do, and we can do something about it by using less gasoline. It's the biggest pollution that we do, and we can stop it by stop burning gasoline. Every gallon of gasoline we burn is 20 pounds of carbon dioxide. And as I was researching this book, I found that buried in the Energy Information Agency, and I came upon it, and it was like a angel sang. I thought, oh my God, this is the truth in capital letters. And so I I sorted out, and nobody is talking about gasoline to this day. So I am your gasoline person. Here's my shirt. Yeah, good night, gasoline. And I tweet every day to Shell Oil because, you know, they were sued by the Dutch citizens. Were you familiar with that story? And the court ruled that they had decreased the quality of life for their citizens through all of their carbon dioxide. And so this is an idea whose time has come, and the other oil companies are going to suffer a similar fate. So I tweet every day to Shell Oil things like, polar bears or gasoline. Polar bears are clean air or gasoline. Coral reefs or gasoline. Come on, Shell, let us help. We'll stop burning your product. I tweet things like that.
Yeah, and Shell has mixed reviews, but overall they definitely have had some investments in clean energy, and they're starting to do more again, and hopefully they will continue to go down the line. The energy companies, the oil companies, will become energy companies and move into clean energy as opposed to continuing to pollute the earth in the way that they do.
Well, you know, that is just a huge, huge turnaround, because they're in the business of supplying oil to the world, and we have accepted it gladly, and we have accepted the downside of it. And now all of a sudden we're saying, no, 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 I don't think this is going to work for us. So
Yes.
they have my sympathies. I mean, Shell is a good company in terms of the old paradigm. They're a great company, but we have to now move into the new paradigm, and we're right at the edge of it. I just wrote a blog called The Edge of Tomorrow, and that's where we are, you know, to 12, 15% into electric cars and solar power and everything else. We're scrambling. We're beginning to scramble around. Huge business opportunities, and also an awakening among the citizenship among the citizens to say, I can do something by burning less gasoline. I can stop burning gasoline. I don't have to put out the money for it and all the car repairs. I don't even have to own a car if I don't want to, because we'll soon have fleets of self-driving electric cars that you can get, just like Lyft and what's the other one? Uber.
Yep.
Yeah, and you know, it's going to be. In fact, one man I listened to the other day, he's a financial consultant, and he said the countryside will be littered with internal combustion engine gasolines that nobody wants. You know, all of a sudden you'll just be a person. Your car will be non grata on the roads, and I don't know what'll happen.
Yeah,
But
it's going to be interesting to see how the transition happens and how fast we
yeah,
adapt, which technologies and et cetera. But, you know, the interesting thing that a couple of interesting statistics that you quoted, which was that 20 pounds of carbon per gallon of gasoline, which equates
right.
to about for the
Pound a
average
mile.
vehicle, about a pound a mile that we're each
Right.
doing.
Every time,
So,
here's another one. Every time you drive about 3,000 miles, you throw the weight of your car, about a 3,000-pound car, into the atmosphere. It's another
great.
way of looking at it.
Yeah,
So if
right.
you drive 12,000 miles away a year, you've thrown that many cars into the atmosphere. And the
Pretty incredible.
atmosphere is now 50% more, uh, has accepted 50% more carbon dioxide than it did 100 years ago. So when does the sky turn gray? When do car-sized globs of carbon dioxide start falling out of the air? I have no idea. That's science fiction. Can't
Yeah,
say that it will.
the science behind climate disruption, though, is that it is fueling more extreme weather events. So everything from the fires and the droughts and the
Right,
floods and the hurricanes
right,
and the
right,
tornadoes and the extreme microburst of waves of activities that we're seeing all across the globe is just happening
right.
more frequently, and they're more intense. So that is science, and that is a fact. And so gasoline. Okay, so you've documented that the human race has gone through this transition from thousands and hundreds of thousands of years of evolution and dealing with
Right,
horses and such to the last couple of hundred years of moving to coal and gas, right? And
right,
so that's an
right.
interesting piece. And that's in which book was that in now?
That's in the phone book.
That's in the phone book called again
Yes, it's a big, handsome book, I have to say. And this is my working
Fueling
copy.
Change.
Yeah,
Fueling
there's lots of
Change.
pictures in it. And I have created 4 murals of the way we live is dictated by the kind of fuel we have. And I don't know that we've exactly put that together, but we do reflect the kind of fuel that we have available to us. And so if you have a horse and a buggy, you can't also have a car and an engine. They don't go together, you know, they're just 2 different paradigms, 2 different forms of energy.
So now as we in 2021, we're looking at the future, and how do you see things evolving, and what do you see is coming, and what can each of us do to help bring on this transition that we so desperately need?
Well, I'm not just tooting my own horn when I say the biggest bang for your effort is to stop burning gasoline. There's nothing else that we do. I mean, there's a huge plastics problem, and we're all busy recycling plastic, and we're trying to be careful, but you know, you cannot measure it. And you don't know where it goes when it goes into the waste stream. And with gasoline, you know exactly the amount of air pollution you are creating, the amount of carbon dioxide, 20 pounds per gallon. What else are you doing that is that impactful? And what else can you do so quickly as to stop doing it? I mean, it's just a heck of an idea that nobody has talked about. And it's easy, and we're going to make it happen very quickly. Where are we in the revolution? We're right at the on ramp. We're right at the stasis. We're still in stasis, although we're moving out it. We're moving into hybrid. Obviously, we've got a hybrid situation going on where we're going to be less and less gasoline, more and more electric. And then we're going to get up into maybe the top of the curve. And that's going to be the brink of the revolution. These are the 4 parts of the revolution that I've mapped out: stasis, hybrid, brink, and revolution. So how long will be, you know, 40, 45, 50%, how fast we'll need to get there, how fast we can get there. We can't really predict yet because it takes a huge amount of momentum, an amount of harmonious thinking, amount of political and economic will, but we're going to get to that. We have to get that pretty quickly because it is much more urgent than we are giving it credit for. And then we'll get on the other side and we'll live differently. And we'll have all these suburbs with people living in them that are no longer served by gasoline. And we have to create some new kind of transportation and new kind of communication, which we're doing now. I know we're kind of burned out on Zoom, but it's the wave of the future.
And the great thing about it is that we can actually see each other and talk to each other, and we don't have to travel to see each other, which is
I know,
pretty
I'm
amazing.
never
So,
getting on a plane again. It looks like a nightmare to me. I don't want to have passengers fighting in the aisles. You know, we've lost our our veneer of courteous treatment of each other. I don't want to go there. And
yeah.
germs, you know, my God, have we shared germs? We didn't realize every doorknob, every counter, every tabletop, we were just messing around with everybody else's germs.
Yeah,
That's
it's pretty
no
crazy,
longer
right?
appealing once you realize it.
Yep. Yep. So, okay. So the transition for each of us from gasoline to alternative
Alternative.
fuels to electric vehicles to what?
Well, there are forms of fuel that we don't know yet. I talked to a man in Missouri a few months ago. He claims that he can create it out of thin air. It's in the air. And I mean, he said it like he knew it. He was an engineer and he wasn't a crackpot. Well, maybe he was. I don't know. I couldn't prove it otherwise. But I had a very nice conversation with him. And there are going to be those alternatives that have been uh, discouraged, shall we say, by oil companies in the past. I won't get into the folklore of what that might look like, but you know, the oil companies have reigned supreme and they have called all the shots. They support the world, and they're going to have to change their direction.
Yeah, one of the things I think that has been great is the fact that Tesla has taken off and they're doing so well, and they're just going like gangbusters, and they've definitely pushed the envelope in terms of technology and now affordability. But the fascinating thing to me is that every manufacturer is now coming into this line. So now we have over 50 different electric vehicles that are on the market. Every manufacturer, no matter which brand you prefer, whether it's at the top end with the Porsches and the Mercedes and the BMWs, or you go down towards the mid-size and the medium cost and down to the lower cost, even to the Chevy Bolts and the Nissan Leafs and the
Right.
whole host of Hyundais and other electric vehicles that are coming out. But every manufacturer has an electric car where the opportunities and the options are now there for everyone. And the great part is that the costs are coming down because it is solid state technology. So just like the smartphones that we all carry around with us used to be multi-million dollar supercomputers, same thing is happening with energy, and it's happening in particular with battery storage and with electric vehicles, where electric cars are now cost competitive with internal combustion engines up front. With the incentives, they're actually less with the federal tax credits and some state and utility incentives. And then you don't have the fuel cost and the maintenance cost.
I know
So
it.
it's
And this is
amazing.
one of the parts of the carefully held secrets of by the oil companies, that you can move around the countryside without buying a tank of gasoline. If you're spending $1,500, $2,000 a year on fuel, you don't have to do that anymore.
That's
I
exactly
want to
right.
tell you, if I may, about my experience at the Tesla
Please.
agency last Saturday.
Yeah.
I went with my friend the week before when she bought a Tesla. She bought an SUV. And so she went back on Saturday to do some final work on that deal. And the place was just like a circus. There was not a car left in the showroom. They'd all been sold. They're selling 40 to 50 cars a day. There wasn't a new one to be stroked or sampled or test driven. And they had a tent out front with owners who were ambassadors of the brand, and prospective buyers could ask questions. One of the big discussions always is with an electric vehicle is what they call range anxiety. How far can I get before I'm run out? Now, that's really left over from the old electric cars. And now they go 250, 300 miles, and they can be charged up in a matter of minutes and about a mile a minute. So if you want to hurry up and just charge 10 minutes to get home, you can do it if you're local, or you do it longer. But I think that kind of math will just become secondary, because there are at least 25,000 posts available that Tesla has put in, not to mention what others have put along the roadside. So there's really no need for range anxiety anymore. And of course, there's no repairs to the drivetrain, no repairs. There's a layer of batteries across the bottom, or cells, I should say, and no gasoline. So you're paying more for the car, but and for $10,000 more, you can put a self-driving mechanism into your car that people can rent it. And you can rent out the car during the day and pay for the cost of the car. You have to eventually pay off the $10,000, but depending on how actively you want to do that, you can make back the cost of the car. That was interesting. And here I have to tell you one more thing. Here's one more thing. You can program your phone to call your car, and you say, "Come to me," and it will come to you. Is that fabulous?
Pretty amazing, right?
That sounds like Rudolph Valentino to me. Come to me.
Come to
That's the
me.
future we're beckoning.
So the fascinating thing to me is that in terms of range anxiety, 98% of Americans' trips are less than 50 miles. And when you think
Exactly.
about how far do you go on the average day, 98% of the time we're going less than
Exactly.
50 miles. And an electric
Right.
vehicle now can go over 200 miles on a charge. Second fascinating thing is that if you just take a regular, any electric vehicle, and you plug it into a regular wall socket, just a
Right.
regular 110, 120 volt
Right.
overnight, that gives you all the charge that you need to go 200 miles. So
Right.
for most of us who have single family residence, we could just plug in our electric vehicle into our garage, and we don't have to worry about charging stations. We don't have to think about it.
Yeah. Right.
And
And you
that's a
don't need a special plug. You just regular
Plug it
household plug.
right into a regular electric socket. And if you want to go
Amazing.
faster, you can do the 220, 240 volt, which is the same as an electric stove or an electric dryer. If you want to get that much faster that way, you can do that. And then, yeah, I mean, Tesla has done a tremendous job developing the high speed, fast chargers around the country. And Tesla, like Apple, is unique. So if you have a Tesla, you can only use Tesla charging stations, and nobody else can use the Tesla charging
Right.
station. So it's unique. But there are now, because of a lot of different factors, many more high speed charging stations all across the country that have been going up. And so if you are taking trips, you can now find a high speed charger almost no matter where you're going, so that if you are doing a long distance trip, you can charge your electric vehicle and go in, have a bite to eat and use a restroom and whatever. And by the time you come out, you've got enough pep to go to the next piece and go 3,
Sure,
4, 5
sure.
hours at a
And
time.
this
So,
is what Elon Musk has done so well. He's put his finger on the greatest anxiety and fixed it,
yep, indeed.
and given them much more besides. And
Exactly.
it's not just a car, it is an intelligent agency. You know, it is an artificial intelligence piece of machinery that does a lot more than just that, just get you around. It is intelligent in a way that our internal combustion cars are not. And as I was riding in this new one, there's no dashboard. There's nothing on the dashboard at all. And you know, that is the area in which internal combustion cars spend a lot of money to make people think that they've got this fabulous thing that they've paid a lot of money for. And guess what? You can get a Tesla that has nothing on that except the screen, the TV screen, which is separate from the dashboard itself. So, and a little plastic credit card that serves as the key. It was fun. It was fun.
Yeah, no, and again, that's the key thing with electric vehicles. And while Tesla has done it, everybody else is moving that line. But again, the costs are coming down because it's solid state technology. So the more that we get out there, the faster the cost comes down. So the costs are going to keep coming down. Cost competitive today to buy them, with the incentives in particular, the federal tax credit and utility and state incentives. But then the price of electricity, no matter where you are, even in the most expensive electric areas in the country, is still half to two-thirds less than the price of gasoline when you look at the per mileage cost
Oh,
for
much
charging.
cheaper, much.
And no oil charges, no oil changes, no transmission fluids, so much less maintenance, about 20 moving parts instead of 2,000 moving parts in an internal combustion engine. Many few things to go wrong. So yeah, amazing. And it sounds like little by little, people are catching on to the fact that they can save money, have less hassles, and have a cleaner environment for their kids and a better future for all of us. So
Yeah.
we're getting there. It's a wonderful thing. All right. So how do you see this future evolving? What do you see happening next? What do you think is coming and how fast?
It's going to get very messy, and it's going to be tumultuous. There's no doubt about it. The earth speaks to us through weather. I mean, every one of these weather events, that is the earth's message. She's saying, look, this is what you've set up for yourselves. I can't help it. This is what I'm doing next. So we're going to have to get very serious about weather, because it is the most damaging thing that goes on. And that's what's going to get our attention most. And to clean up after the forest fires, clean up after the floods constantly. The insurance companies are already under great stress. And believe it or not, people are still buying houses at the seashore, 50 feet from the high tide. It amazes me. And so there's just going to be so many swift changes. And because we are at the height of the fuel that we have so many choices. We're going to be able to invent our way out of a lot of things, but we can't invent our way out of global warming. We just have to stop. That's how we get from here to there. We have to stop doing the oil derived things.
Yeah, and there are some innovations and there are some technologies absolutely that are taking advantage and helping us to make those changes, which is
Exactly.
great. So,
A lot
so
of midwifery.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So, what was it? In most of our lives, we've had this kind of moment of, aha, I've got it after working on something for a while. So, could you share what your interesting insight moment was like for you and how did that happen?
Well, I mentioned earlier that discovering that gasoline was the culprit, and the fact that it is such a well kept secret that nobody talks about it to this moment. I am the only one, as far as I know, that tweets out these messages. And the more we complain to the oil companies, the more we fail to take responsibility for our own power. We are customers. We are not addicts. We act like we're addicts. This is one of the major breakthroughs that I had. We're all addicted to oil of a necessity. We can realize that we don't have to be addicted, that we are customers. We can use less, we can use none, we can walk away, we can make this happen. This is going to be the biggest realization of individual and collective power ever that we've ever taken on.
Outstanding. So, in most of our careers, we've all had these kind of down moments where we hit bottom on something and it helped us reframe our lives and where we are. So, would you care to share your kind of worst clean energy moment and what that was like? And
Nothing comes to mind. I'm sorry to say, you caught me there. My worst
ah,
clean energy moment. Well,
yeah,
the
you
fact
know,
that
keep
I'm
it
still
down to earth.
driving. Here's one. I'm still driving a Chrysler 2011 town car. Now you forced me to admit that on the air. And I only go to the grocery store and back, and I just haven't decided what I'm going to do. I'm really waiting for the self-driving taxi service, and I know it'll get to Kansas City in the next 3 or 4 years, and I will be out of the internal combustion business. I don't want to, I loved the Tesla and I loved going there, but I don't want to sink $50,000 into a car. I just think it's an idea whose time is going to leave us eventually.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to enter into what we call the Pulsar Round, where we're going to ask you a series of questions and we look for your short, succinct, and mind blowing answers.
Oh
So,
my
are
God,
you
no pressure.
ready? Here we go. All right. What's the best advice you've ever received?
When a door opens, walk through it.
Nice.
My mother told me that growing up, and it's been true. And I decided to dedicate my life to this particular door, and that's where I've been.
Outstanding. If you would share a personal habit that contributes to your success.
I read voraciously, and you would hate to see the number of books that I order from Amazon. They love me. I don't order the Kindle because I don't like the Kindle, so I order the hard copy and read a book every couple of days. It's hard to keep up with everything.
So much amazing literature out there. Absolutely. So speaking of books, what book would you recommend to awesome Earth kind people and why?
Well, I'd recommend my book. God forgive me. Good Night Gasoline. How often do you get the absolute solution to a global problem in 40 pages of pictures and a few lines of type? Come on. Good
There
Night
we go.
Gasoline, how to win the climate change challenge.
Good Night Gasoline. There
Or
we
the
are.
gasoline diet, see, or fueling change. Telephone.
Well, the gasoline diet or fueling change. There we go. How about an internet resource that you'd care to share for folks?
Intimate. Is that what you said?
An internet
Oh, internet.
resource.
Oh, God, I'm
Yes.
glad.
Sorry. Yes.
Internet. I did all my research. Well, that's not true. I did a lot of my research at the historical places in Kansas City, but the internet is really good for research. And I didn't use it as much. I got my degree in 2009, so it wasn't as developed as it is now, but it's a great spot.
Okay. Well, if you had a magic wand and you could wave it and change one thing for everyone in the world, what would it be?
It would be to grow up, be nice to each other, quit carrying on like savages. we really need to cooperate to make this come about. And, if I saw somebody beating on somebody because he had an electric car, or, the stuff that goes on airplanes, I mean, get over yourself. We need everybody's cooperation. We are all on this together. There is no spare planet. We've got to make it work together.
There we go. Can't we all just get along?
Right. Rodney King, where is he when we need him?
All right, so we call this section WTF or F, weather time fudge, an extreme weather event that you lived through and tell the tale, or weather time fun, the most fun you've ever had in the weather it was. So pick one and tell us a tale, if you would, about weather.
Wow. Huh.
And
Well, I was in Yucatan when I graduated from college in Mexico City, and a bunch of friends and I went down to Yucatan over Easter vacation, and we ran out of money. We couldn't get back, and so we had to take a boat, a fishing boat, from Yucatan to Veracruz, which is, two parts of the Gulf of Mexico. And so we had to wade out in the moonlight to get into the rowboat and get on the boat. And we got out there in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico, and we got into a tremendous storm. And we were sitting in our bunks, and the boat would go like this, and we didn't know if it was going to come back up or not. So here we were. It was almost biblical. It was biblical. And we ran out of food. And so they caught some fish. You'd think the fishermen would do better, but they ate the body of the fish and we got the heads. So there were 4 of us on this trip, and we got fish heads for 4 days. And finally we got to Veracruz. I had one bait day. That's a 20 something. I don't know what they're called. 20 pesos. Yeah. And it activated the telephone. And we called our senora and we said, we're coming home. And this man walks up to us and said, would you like a ride up to Mexico City? Because we didn't have any money. And we said, yes. So that's how we got home. That was all weather related.
Wow. And you said that you had one of your kids was living in California and then saw the fire from their driveway, right? Tell us about that real quick.
Right. Well, they lived in Burbank. My son is an animator and director for animated features. And so Burbank's the hot spot, and the hills were just so on fire. This was last year. And they walked to the end of the street, and the glow was coming over at night, and they said, we're getting out of here. And so they did. They left. And that was just about the time that COVID started, and you could Zoom instead of going to work. So they moved to Kansas City, and here they are. And so far our weather's been pretty good, although the Midwest is in a long-term drought. And I have written as kind of a shorthand for that, if you live on the coast, you're going to have soggy shoes. And if you live in the inland, you're going to have dusty sandals, because you're either going to be in the tide coming up or the drought. And South Carolina, they were just talking about the tide coming up, the water coming up into the cities on the coast of South Carolina. Charleston, you're up to your ankles. That's really soggy shoes. Whereas here we're getting less and less. I mean, North Dakota is 100% drought, and South Dakota, Nebraska's in a long-term drought. And that's the earth talking to us. That's her vocabulary.
There we go. Extreme weather events being fueled by climate change all across the globe.
Yeah, she's shouting at us.
Yes, indeed. What would be the one thing you're most energized about today?
Today?
In general. Today in the broader sense, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm having lunch with my son who moved here from Burbank. For 20 years, I flew out to see him. And he went from high school here, he went out to the California Institute of the Arts to become an animator. That's the school that Disney started to supply artists to the animation industry. And then he was there, he got married, he had kids there. If I wanted to see a grandkid, I'd get on a plane. I don't have to do that anymore.
That's a wonderful thing. Fantastic.
is.
All right. So what's your next steps in your journey here there, Twyla?
I have another book coming out in the fall. It's the founding of EPA. EPA was 50 years old last December. I did not bring out the book then because it was just too noisy with COVID, and my husband had died in November, and I wasn't able to put my spirit behind something like that. But nobody has written about the founding of EPA, and Richard Nixon, the Republican president, and Edmund Muskie, the Democratic senator from Maine, put together the EPA. They never spoke to each other. Richard Nixon did not invite Edmund Muskie to the signing ceremony. He signed it in San Clemente. I mean, it's just typical, right? And yet they put together something that, thank God we have it. Much persecuted as it is, much gutted by the Trump administration. Thank God we have it.
Yeah, absolutely. So out of the first Earth Day, which was 1970, came a
70.
whole host of things, including the
Absolutely.
EPA.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it just goes to show you what we people can do when we all decide to rise up and have our voices heard. So, yes,
And
indeed.
we must do more of the same.
Yes, indeed. Okay, well, grand finale. Let's, if you would, share your piece of parting advice. And if you'd like people to get a hold of you, the best way.
Piece of parting advice is to take climate change seriously. It's going to be a part of your life. It's going to be an increasing part of your life. It's going to encroach in ways you won't like it unless you begin to do something independent of it and cooperating with it, which would be gasoline. There's nothing more you can do more impactful than to burn less gasoline or to stop it altogether. What was the second part of that question?
How people can get a hold of you if you'd like them to.
Oh, how we can stop climate change now.com.
A website, howwecanstopclimatechangenow.com.
.com, right. And we
go.
have started the Legacy Project, which is for people who want to buy classroom sets of Goodnight Gasoline and donate it to their local schools because we need to get the word out quickly. And the kids love it. The kids love this kind of book. They get it, right? It's a picture book, grown-up message, simple pictures.
Fantastic. Anything that we didn't cover that you wanted to touch on?
Oh, I was going to show you on the last side of the page. Yeah, that fuel is more important than we think. And it's becoming more and more important. I don't know if you can see these pictures. There are 4 different murals of the 4 different fuels. You start out with the Indians and the log cabin and the pioneers. That's the wood age. Then you go to the coal age and we have metal, and we have metal bridges that came across the Missouri. And then we get to the oil age and we have cars, and then we're getting to the solar age and we're on bicycles. Those are the 4 murals.
There you go. Bicycles, but then electric vehicles and electric everything.
Right,
So
right.
clean electricity. Yes, indeed. Powered by the forces of nature, the powers of the air, water, earth, and sun, the forces that awes us every day. And you and I, all 7 billion of women and mankind, all earth kind, are now a force of nature ourselves. And Twyla, it's a pleasure meeting you. Thank you so much for your time and for your
Thank
books
you.
and your insights.
Thanks for joining us today, awesome people. We'd like to hear from you, and we'll give you the chance to win a $150 LED light fixture if you help us understand how Awesome Earthkind can help you achieve your clean energy goals. Just go to awesomeearthkind.com and click on Tell Us. When you fill out the survey, you'll automatically be entered into a sweepstakes for a free LED light fixture, and we'll be giving one away every month for the rest of the year. If you like what we're doing, please rate and review the Awesome Earthkind podcast on your favorite podcast platform. And if you're interested in adding clean energy consulting to your existing business offerings, go to awesomeearthkind.com/earn. When you refer us to a commercial building and they decide to go clean and save green with Earthkind Energy's consulting services, your referral will save money and you'll earn finder's fees worth thousands of dollars. Remember,
You are an awesome force of nature and can make a real difference. Take your next step to create the clean energy future we all want and our children need and deserve. Until next time, take care, be well, and energize.